Italy's Democratic Party has conceded defeat in the country's election following a shock exit poll result which saw the populist right party, Brothers of Italy, winning more than a quarter of the vote at over 25% compared to the Democratic Party's 19%.
Yes, well, Giorgia Meloni, the leader of Brothers of Italy, said Italian voters had given a clear mandate to the right to form the next government.
Well, if she becomes Prime Minister, Giorgia Meloni would be Italy's first female Prime Minister. And also some commentators are saying that she would be the country's first far-right politician to lead since Mussolini.
Yes, well, let's speak to academic and Professor of Politics at the University of Kent, Matt Goodwin. Good morning. The first question to ask you is these reports, these accusations that she's incredibly far-right, are they justified? Is there any truth to them?
Well, Giorgia Meloni's party certainly is rooted in what we often call the post-fascist tradition. So it does hold its roots in the movement led by Mussolini. Meloni has distanced herself from some of the comments that have been made by Italy's interwar leader. She does take a tough line on immigration. She's quite sceptical of the European Union, though she's not calling to leave the EU. She's very critical of illegal migration. So all of that, I think, has led many of her critics to refer to her as far right. I would personally argue that she's probably a radical right politician, an ultra-conservative politician who is also quite critical of many of the mainstream positions on issues like gender, the criticism of religion, the criticism of the family, of national identity. And that's really why she's been able to put together this support. She's drawn support from across the spectrum, from sort of conservative voters, from former League voters, from some five-star populist voters. And that's what's really given her this very powerful position.
And Professor Goodwin, isn't this part of the problem with this labelling of the far right? Because, you see you've had the Swedish Democrats, also Orban in Hungary. Whatever people's personal disagreements with those parties, is it not the way in which certain parties are demonised and ignored that means that many Western observers on the liberal side are completely dumbfounded when the results don't reflect their own prejudices and assumptions? And isn't that part of the problem, this labelling, without actually understanding what is going on, what are the problems, and taking them seriously?
I think that is part of the problem. I think if you look at how liberals have responded ever since 2016, those shock revolts with Trump and Brexit, my personal view is liberals have responded very poorly to that. They've not really addressed the reasons why so many people have been leaving the mainstream. They've talked a lot about kind of misinformation and threats to democracy, but they haven't, in my view, addressed people's very widespread concerns about issues to do with the erosion of national borders, the erosion of established identities. And, when we talk about terms such as far right or fascist, the reality is that in most Western democracies today, those terms really don't actually take us very far in understanding these parties. Most parties that we often refer to, perhaps more so as national populist, accept that they need to work within the boundaries of democracy. They accept they need to work within the boundaries of the capitalist system. Most, like Meloni, are not calling to leave the European Union. Most, like Marine Le Pen, have also toned down their Euroscepticism. So we're not talking about revolutionary parties that want to overthrow the system. And that is a really important difference from what we saw in interwar Europe. Those parties were genuinely revolutionary. They wanted to overthrow democracy. They wanted to overthrow liberalism. They just didn't recognize the established system in any sense. That's not what we're dealing with today. They are certainly sometimes reactionary parties. They want a much tougher approach on migration, on crime. They want to defend the family. They're very opposed to gender identity and those things, but they're not revolutionary in the sense that they want to completely overthrow the entire system.